Hello, good morning. Are you there? Hope you are there. Hope you enjoy our meeting today. It's 9:30 a.m. in Spain. We are all working from home, most of us working from home. So this is why you don't see us wearing the face mask. We hope you enjoy our seminar today. All these guys and friends coming from all around the world. We want to welcome you. We're going to have a short presentation and a small practice where you will be able to see a little bit of our forum console, which is the subject of our webinar today. And without any more delay, I want to introduce you my colleagues who will be helping me. Just in case you haven't noticed, I am Antonio Perez, the one you see here on the name. I'm in charge of Asian markets and far away, Australia and the Pacific. So without any more delay, I'm going to introduce you to my colleague Sergey Alexiev, which is in charge of the many countries in the export department. Hello, Sergio, how are you doing?
Hello, Antonio, good morning. Hello, everyone. Fine, also working from home, just like you.
Thank you, Sergio. Thank you very much. And finally, Peter Howard, who is in charge of also Western European markets, United States office, and many other things in AEQ. Hello, Peter. Good morning.
Good morning, Antonio. Good morning to everyone. Yes, and as you can see from my background, I'm working from home as well. We're sitting in our respective areas where we can work quietly. So
there we are. So hope we all have a quiet moment, some quiet time for our presentation today. And just to finally to tell you that after the meeting, after this presentation, will be a small questions and answers time where we can enjoy some interactivity and we can change some of your questions and your wishes to know. And you can use your chat box into the GoToWebinar application to enter your questions, and we will put them all together, and at the end of the presentation we will try to answer as much as possible. So just in case any one of you doesn't know AEQ, which is very rare, AEQ has been manufacturing broadcast equipment for the last 40 years. Our range of products includes from all the audio for radio, broadcasting, radio and television, like consoles, like we're talking today, commentary units, communications, intercom systems, audio storage and automation. Further to this, AEQ has been on the major sport events in the last 30 years in Winter and Summer Olympics, like London, Tokyo, Sydney. We have our headquarters in Madrid. Since 1993, AEQ has been having offices in the United States, Mexico, Portugal, and India. And finally, on this critical moment for all of us, AEQ wants to assist our customers and friends, as well as the broadcast industry in general, in finding solutions that allow us to continue the service with some relative normality and the safety of your personnel, with our best wishes. So let's start the presentation. The small outline we're going to have today, the small presentation we're going to have will include just a small general description of the console forum. We will have a quick view of the versions of the console. We'll see the components, and my colleagues will be able to help you and show you a little bit the setting up and using a little bit the forum IP. You will see our mates using the forum IP from the office. And finally, we'll see some user references. So, what is the forum? What is the forum in the range of AEQ consoles? The range of AEQ consoles includes the AEQ Atrium. Atrium is our latest console on large format with lots of screens and lots of faders, basically for large studios with a lot of interactivity, users, technicians, complicated programs. On the other end of the range is the AEQ Capital IP, which is our small size, but not less powerful, small size console for self-operated studios. And Forum is using the space in between. We're having a lot of problems with the PowerPoint today. Sorry. Forum is using the space in between. It's a middle-size console in between the large and the small. So, as I was telling you, the Forum is on the intermediate range. It's a state-of-the-art technology, digital technology, and IP based on Dante. We work on Dante and AS67. It's very easy to configure, as you will see today in the presentation, and the operation is highly intuitive. So just to talk a little bit about numbers in this presentation, the Forum can house from 4 up to 24 faders. So I give you a wide range from the applications in radio studios. You can handle up to 64 local signals, which are the physical signals, the signals physically connected to the console, to the hardware, and 64 remote audio channels. You know, the modern technologies in audio and in radio, they are more and more based on the networking and the IP connectivity, and to have the signals clouding and all that. So all this is, the Forum is ready to house all these capacities. We can provide up to 32 mixing buses, which means that you have enough for your program outputs, auxiliary, monitoring, clean feeds, in mono, in stereo signals, in any of the formats, in any of the outputs. We can run basically up to 8 internal MPS and minus buses, mix minus, clean feeds, -1 as you want to call them. Of course, on top of these 8, if you need more, you can start working with more auxiliary buses, whatever is required. So in terms of configuration, hardware configuration, this is a modular console, so we can work with 14 audio modules that we will see later. And it's if these are not enough, we can expand it with additional devices like the AEQ Netbox family. The features as a radio console. Well, you have the specific to radio broadcasting features, which are the cough mute buttons, on air, signaling, studio, control room, fader, starts, everything that is on the radio studios can be handled by the console. If you don't see your particular request on this list, just drop us a question, and we will be pleased to answer you. This is a digital console, so it has user levels, and you can configure. You can configure the console, you can configure the users, you can configure everything. So the 4 different users allows you for an scalable user access depending on the privilege. So the idea is, also you have memory banks for saving and recovering settings and configurations. The idea is that every user, every program can have their own setup in the console. So it's different the morning program where you have telephone calls, interaction, from the night show when you have a DJ, or you have only the automation. So depending on the time of the day, you can have different setups that users with their permissions, they can recall different ways, different times of the day. So the console is fully configurable for you, for your station, and for your users. More features in radio, typical features in radio. Well, the external or peripheral equipment control, hybrids, codecs, whatever you can integrate in IP or in GPIOs in the console, we can put it. Routing, pre-fader, post-faders. Well, as I told you, what are the mandatory applications that we have in radio studios. More features, systems clock, physical and virtual GPIOs. Well, this is interesting. We have our physical GPIOs, relays, all these that can signal, can produce the interaction of the console with other consoles, with systems in the control room, external codecs, whatever. And this, now the latest additions are the virtual GPIOs. Virtual GPIOs, my colleagues will show you later, are the same effects of the cables, but on IP, without cables, let's say. The same matching with the IP is possible to send information regarding the levels, view meters, to other equipment and applications, such as the visual radio, and you can integrate the console with other applications, and you can remote control by software. My colleagues will show you. So, as you can see, the console can do everything. What about the size of the console? Well, this is somehow 1, 2, 3, 4. This has been the evolution of the Forum through the last, let's say, 10 years. This console is a mature project. It's a mature equipment, which has been manufactured for more than 10 years now, and it's under constant review. So we are constantly changing, upgrading, getting it, improving, making it better. The console started in 12 faders in a compact mode, in a compact chassis like this. Then we made a 20 faders version because the console was having power enough to handle 20 faders, which is not 20 inputs, 20 faders. Then in 2017, 2018, we gave birth to the Forum IP split. Forum IP split came because of the need of splitting some demands from clients of splitting the control modules, splitting the core. So we gave birth to this solution of modules, control modules, and core in a separate chassis. And finally, just from the last 1 or 2 years, it came Forum IP LITE. Forum IP LITE came from the need of smaller and smaller racks. So this is a kind of hybrid console. It's a hybrid in between the Forum controllers and the Capital control, the Capital core, the Capital audio engine. So we are reducing to the minimum, following this new trend about studios. We are reducing to the minimum the local size of the console, and we are relying more and more on clouding and audio, which is staying on the IP network. And this Forum IP LITE is following this principle: the minimum controllers, the minimum size, but higher powerful in terms of higher possible power in terms of audio handling from the network. So here we can see some pictures about how the Forum looks like. This is a Forum 12, this is a Forum 20, Grand Forum, we call it, Grand Forum IP, 20 faders. And this is a layout of 24 faders. In this case is 16, but we can go up to 24 faders in a Forum split, where here you can see that now the client installed the control module on the left, on the right, wherever. Most of us, we work with the control fader on the right. In China, they work with this on the middle, on the left. And LITE, which is basically, as you see, it is the same, practically the same as in the classical Forum. So focusing a little bit on the current model, the model we are working, which is the split, which is here you see in the bottom of the presentation, you see the dimensions that we are starting with an audio engine, which is 3-unit rack, and the user modules, which are coming in a very convenient and ergonomic size for the operation. So as I told you, we can operate with up to 6 modules of 4 faders each. The control modules separate from the rack or the audio engine, which is using 3U. This console, as counting, we could work with up to 180 audio inputs and outputs, which is coming from 64 local audio inputs, let's say 64 from the network and another 20-something from the common signals in the studios that we will show you. I'll show you later. It can be equipped, which is important, with 1 or 2 Dante AS67 audio over IP boards, which is, so this console is ready for whatever could come in the coming years in terms of audio. If we want to have a very quick view to the faders module in detail, the control surface and the fader modules, we work in 4 faders modules, which is standard in this size of consoles. This is a very open and flexible modules configuration. So this is following the principle of any audio source to any fader, which gives you full flexibility. This can be stored into the memories, and the memories can store all the information, as I told you, for a user, for a program, or whatever. You can group signals into a single fader. So you can have audio signals which are out of the fader, or like the time tops or whatever, you can put it out of the fader straight into the program. Another interesting thing in the programming of faders is that the fader you can configure to operate as full throw, or to keep 10 dBs, 10, 12 dBs, I don't know exactly, but I think it's 10 or 12 dBs headroom. So we mark here 2 lines, and in these 2 lines you can have 0 on the top or 0 on the 80% of the fader run. This has to do a little bit with different styles and different ways of operating the consoles, self-operated consoles in music programs or more radio, which is talk radio, which requires more adjustment. At the bottom, you have the two programmable buttons that you can operate as on/off, A/B, orders, whatever. So at the end, the conclusion is that you can configure the operation of the fader strip as you like, as you prefer. On the right hand, on the right, on the left, wherever, one per console, we have the control, what we call the control module. The control module is where you have the view meters. You have two view meters. Normally, well, the left one is for program, always program. The right one is for QE, PFL, or any source that you have in the console, any input, any output. So the capacity that you have for monitoring in this console is unlimited. You can monitor everything. 20 programmable keys that you have on your right. My colleagues will show you that these keys can be entered any function for interaction of the console or for internal operation of the console. Any function that is not observing any other key, you can put it here. The main screen is where the users, they log in, they recall the memories, the setups. When they press select or key on any channel, this displays the main audio parameters for that channel, which is gain, phase, control, balance, EQ, process, dynamics. Anything that you need to do is you will do it in this screen or in the software, in the external software. And finally, in the bottom part of the control module, we have the monitoring section, again, for control room and for studio room. So it's duplicated. So you can have, you can work in self-control, you can work studio control room, and we have all the toolbox section. Again, if there is something here in the control that you don't see, or you want to use, or you want to make differently, you can program it here. Normally, my colleagues will show you later how you can program. And to finish with the hardware, basically this is after the user, then it comes the hardware power or the hardware components. Here is where you have to define the console from the factory. The console, the forum IP is a modular, comes with a modular audio core where you have the audio inputs and outputs. What are the number of inputs and outputs you have? Well, as I told you, we have 14 slots. And in the 14 slots, we can enter digital cards, mic lines, microphones. In this device, they are limited to 8 microphones plus one on tollback. This means 9 microphones. But if you need additional microphones, we can plug, again, external AEQ netbox units. So through the netbox, we could expand the console to 20 microphones if you want to operate 20 microphones, which is more than enough for a radio studio. So as I told you, analog line inputs, analog line outputs boards, which are providing inputs and outputs that can be made in mono or stereo. You can configure as you wish. You can assign any output, any direct output, any zooming bus. You are fully open and flexible and free to configure the console. FR14 multi-channel audio over IP. You can handle up to 2 boards with maximum with 32 or 64 channels, audio over IP channels. USB, in case you want to connect computers, automation system, AEQ automation system, the most popular automation systems in the market. They are all Windows compatible. They have these Windows compatible drivers and they can talk to the console. So this is a good price for a good professional audio card. And finally, the digital phone hybrids. Digital phone hybrids is AEQ has been manufacturing phone hybrids, telephone digital phone hybrids for the last 25 years, and always we have put the hybrids inside the console traditionally. So the same as we have in our old consoles, in our old analog consoles, we still having the telephone hybrids that you can install inside the console with good protection, no concerns, no. We know there are a lot of problems that are coming through the telephone lines in several countries, in lots of countries, in tropical countries, mostly, but we have experience and the protection is very good. So you don't damage the console even if you have lighting through the telephone lines. To finish the presentation, well, as I told you, this is the appearance of the classical forum that you see here on the bottom. with the inputs and outputs modules. In the forum split, it comes in a 3U rack. Here you see in this space, the space that typically could use 2 units rack is the space for the audio boards. And here highlighted in the orange color boxes are when we talk about the control inputs, the common inputs and outputs modules, where you have the midline for tollback, the headphones outputs, studio and control rooms, GPIs, network synchronisms, and one particular module, which is FR11 MADI, just in case you still having MADI links in your station from the old days, then you can connect them here. And I think without any more delay, I want to call my colleague Sergey, just to show you a little bit how we can operate the console. Hello, Sergio, please go ahead.
Hello, Antonio. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm quite sure that has been quite useful and interesting so far. So me personally, I want to speak today about sorry, yes, first of all, I need to share my screen. Yes. Okay. So me personally, I would like to speak about the two tools that we have available for the forum. In this case, quite useful nowadays, especially because they are designed for remote and remote control and display, okay, and remote monitoring on the mixer. Here we're talking about two solutions, forum screen and a virtual forum. The first one, forum screen, is designed in order to monitor the mixer and to also adjust, change some parameters. Okay, we will go through the software, okay, on real time, so you will see what can you do and what options are available. Okay, this is basically the software, the forum IP screen, as you can see on the right, and the virtual software, which is basically designed to control the entire surface remotely. Doesn't matter if you are at home or in another studio, just to control the entire surface remotely. Okay. Both applications, both tools can be installed in the PC, Windows, Mac, and also in a tablet if you want it, also iOS or Android. Okay, so both options available. Once again, both connections, if we are using forum IP screen or virtual forum, or both of them, which is obviously the best option, to use them simultaneously, both of them can be connected to the mixer through a Ethernet connection. Okay, the PC, which if we are in a studio and we have another studio close to where's the mixer and we have the PC connected to the engine, we can connect to that PC and control the have the software and control the mixer and the surface on that PC. We can use an internet connection, so we can be far away from the mixer. Just in my case, for example, I'm at home. I'm something like 100 kilometers away from AEQ today, and I will show you the mixer and I will control it from my PC. And the mixer is in AEQ and our headquarters in Madrid. Okay, so it's far, far away from me. And also you can use this kind of tools like TeamViewer or AnyDesk in order to connect it. For example, in my case, today I'm gonna access to and control remotely the mixer, the forum split, which is in AEQ with the AnyDesk solution. Okay, so first of all, I would like to show you the main features here on the PowerPoint presentation about the forum screen and the virtual forum, and then I believe we can move to the to show the application, how it works in real life. So basically, as you can see in the presentation, the forum IP screen, what we have here. So what can we monitor, what we can display in the interface, what can we see? So basically we see the boom meters, okay, on the left. Let's go to no. Here we go. Here it is. So I minimize this. Here it goes. This is how it looks. So right now I'm connected to the mixer, okay, and I can control. I can see and monitor. Basically, this on the left. What we have. Let's go. So we have the main bus, which is the program, okay. The secondary bus, which is the audition, and then we have two selectable sources. Then we can display another two emitters on the left, which are in this case auxiliary 1, as we call it, and auxiliary 2. You can assign whatever you will. If you like to have, for example, the telephone hybrid 1, you can put it there. Telephone hybrid 2, maybe there is a CD, USB, whatever. So you have these two main emitters and the two one selectable to have 4 in total on the left side. Okay, on the right side, what we have? Well, as you can see, we have the clock. Okay, the date. Today is 28th of January, for example, as you can see there. Second scouting, and also you have the emitters for another 4 sources. In this case, we have the multiplex 1, 2, 3, and the Q, which is right now, as you can see, the emitters are displayed. Okay, what we have in the center, just in the middle and the down part and bottom of the application of the interface, you can see the current status of the two telephone lines, two telephone hybrids. As Antonio already mentioned, in the as you know, in the Capitol and the forum, you have the option to integrate two telephone hybrids built in the mixer. Okay, so here you can see the status of both lines. So we have telephone 1 and telephone 2. So it's on right now, it's on hooked. Okay, but it can be on air or on way or whatever it's the status. You will see it displayed in this interface, and also basically the on air LITE option if you want. Okay, so this interface, this one that I'm sharing with you now, is the forum IP screen. So as I mentioned, this one is connected to the mixer. It's if I'm not mistaken, 16 fader's mixer forum split, which is located in AEQ in the headquarters. And now we can move to the next one, to the virtual forum, which is the software that controls remotely the mixer. So if I go to the middle and I press this one, I will automatically switch to the surface. So as you can see here, what we are watching now, we are through the AnyDesk, is the complete surface of the mixer, okay, the complete display. So we have all the faders. At this moment, we are watching, as you can see here on the top, from the 1 to up to the forum number 8. And if we want to switch to the another 8 up to from the 9th to the 16th, we just need to press here, and as you can see, we move through the rest of the faders. Okay, so here on the virtual forum, what we have, once again, what we try is to emulate, let's say, and replicate the entire surface of the mixer. So once again, here we have the emitters, the program, as we see in the forum IP screen, the audition, okay, and the two selectable sources, in this case, auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2, as I mentioned you previously. Okay, on the top on the right, as you can see here, what we have is the 20 programmable buttons, the 20 programmable keys that we can assign and route in the software. Okay, my colleague Peter will show you how to do it in a couple of minutes, just after my presentation. Okay, and here you see we have what we made in our configuration in the form. We have the salvo number 1, GPI, MPEG 1, 2, auto Q, Q reset, and memory 1 and on air 1, for example. Okay. Also, what we have in each fader, as you can see, we can select program and audition. Okay, we are able to select auxiliary 1 or 2. Okay, if we go to the select and we press it, you can see we can make some adjustment in the processing. Okay, so if I can go to dynamic and equalizer. For example, if I would like to make some adjustment in the equalizer, I need to press here. Okay, and okay, there we go. And we go to this menu. Okay, so here I can make all the adjustments and touch the parameters that I need to change whatever I need. Okay, so here is I can select the inputs. Okay, in order to do the same. Outputs. Okay, so once again, for example, if I would like to go to USB 2, I would like to switch something, I can go here and just the compressor limiter of this input of USB 2. Okay, if I done it, I press back and I come back to the forum IP screen, to the main menu. If I would like to go to the mixer, to the surface, once again I press here, so I'm back. Okay, so we close this part. As you may know, it's quite logical, of course, obviously. Everything what's happening here in the software, in the virtual forum, in my PC at my home, is now happening, of course, at the same time in the mixer, which is an AEQ. Okay, far away from my location in this case. So obviously, I can also select the queue, put on this fader. I need it, okay, and I can raise the fader and I can tone it down. And the last part on the right, let's say we have the reset buttons, the queue. Okay, we have the monitoring of console and studio. Okay, in this case, we can select the source. Here one is auxiliary 1. In this case, it's USB 3, and I can also adjust the levels of the monitor, of the headphones. Okay, headphones on the console and headphones on the studio. Okay, so we go back to the forum IP screen. We have this menu also, which is basically once again we go to the other menu in the inputs. Okay, so we can go through the forum IP screen. Okay, or if we have the both solutions, if we have the virtual forum and the forum IP, I can do the same. Moving it from here. I go to the same menu, okay, as you can see. So I can move to the compressor limiter to make the adjustments, and also move to the inputs, okay, in order to make all the adjustments. So it doesn't matter how you want to get to the adjustments, you can get it quite fixed, and it's quite intuitive. I believe it's quite simple to manage. If you have a touchscreen PC or if you have a tablet, it's quite useful. Basically, nowadays, as you know, due to the COVID and all this situation worldwide, these tools get more and more used by the customer. But I think that is pretty good to mention, and that's my last comment, is that we have more situations in which this kind of solutions could be quite useful. For example, you don't have to be in a COVID, but for example, if there's an accident, okay, for example, if somebody maybe drops a coffee on the surface, okay, on the surface of the mixer, or unfortunately there's a deluge, okay, and the mixer is the surface of the mixer is broken for some reason, but you still have the engine, you can still broadcasting, okay. So if you have the engine and if you have the virtual forum and the forum IP screen, you will be able to still broadcasting. So we have several customers that had this kind of accidents during the last years, and the solution, okay, the tools that saved them in order to keep broadcasting was the solution, the forum, the virtual forum, and the forum screen. Okay, as you know, we have the same solutions for the Capitol, which is basically the same name as the virtual Capitol and Capitol Screen, and you will have the same options. Okay, in this case, obviously, you are limited number of faders, because as you can see here, we have 16, and as you know, the Capitol is up to 8 faders. Okay, 12 with the special solution. Okay, I believe that's all from my side. I will ask my colleague Peter to join us, okay, and give you some introduction of the setup. Okay. Once again, I would like to remind you that all the questions that you may have about the software will be available for the Q&A session in the end of this webinar. Okay. So, hello, Peter. How are you doing?
Hello, Sergey. Thank you very much for showing us the screen and the virtual applications. Well, on my table, I hope that you can see my screen. I do believe that you can. What I will do is I will go through very quickly the setup software of the forum IP. As you know, with any digital console nowadays, you need to set up the console or the core to do the job that you want it to do, and you have to adapt the control surface and your core, your matrix, internal matrix, to comply with your internal workflow at the station. Obviously, I'm biased, but I would say that our setup software is probably one of the most intuitive and simple setup softwares that you can use. I could probably continue for a couple of hours in showing you how the application works and how you set up the software and set up the console, but I'll probably limit this to an introduction to maybe 10, 12 minutes or so. In any event, when you receive a forum IP split console, you will receive a console that is fully operational from minute number 1. Because we always supply the console with a factory configuration. So it will be, you open the console and all the different bespoke configuration that you may have will be operational and working at a basic, very simple level. Now, with that basic configuration in mind, you can start adapting it to your particular needs and to your particular workflows at the station. It's very easy to set up and configure the console. The console will always be configured offline. So as long as you are not sending in any configuration to the console, you are not going to destroy anything on the console. So due care and attention has to be observed, of course. So the first thing we should always do is to save a copy of the configuration of the console that we have on the hardware. And once we've modified, we send the configuration to the console and overwrite the previous one. Also, with regards to the configuration, you should take into account that there are, in some cases, not all the users should have access to the different features of the and different areas of the configuration, for example, of the console, from the control surface, and also from the software. So our software and the hardware comes with different user levels, so you can limit the different features and functions that each user, depending on capacity and privileges, can access to. Another important aspect is the capacity to automate the operation of this console. These consoles can be highly automated or fully manual. It doesn't really matter how you want to operate, but you can either automate or you can operate manually. We have, for that purpose, we have both physical and virtual GPIOs that you can configure in a reasonable amount. I would say a very reasonable amount, because the physical GPIOs, we have 8, as Antonio explained. They're optocoupled, and then we have 4 relays to drive studio lights and stuff like that, anything that needs power. And the virtual GPIO, allows us to have up to 250 different GPIs and 250 GPOs that we could use to control external equipment, or to have the external equipment controlling our forum IP. It could be an automation system that we just embed an object and send that virtual GPI command. In the case of the computer, it would be a GPO, but for the forum, it would be a GPI, and we could have the console to do a particular setting momentarily, and then return to normal operation once the event has finished. All these features can be stored in memory banks. We can also store all these things that Sergey showed us with regards to settings for EQ, dynamics, and other processing, noise gates, limiters, etc. We can store these in memory banks, and we can assign them to particular input channels of the console at any given moment, and they can be recalled at any given moment as well, of course, both from software and from the actual control surface. So what I will do now, I will show you how the application actually works. So with a bit of luck, you will be able to see the application here. So what we have here now, I'll maximize that. Sorry for that. So what we have here now is the setup software. It's on top of the virtual, as you can see. And what we need to do is to indicate what IP address we have available for our core on the control port that we're using. And we just hit connect. And here we can see that we connect to the engine or the core, and we can see what we have registered available on this actual console. So we have the MADI registered on it, so it's a license, hardware license. Virtual and screen are also licensed, and we have also the visual radio available. But this particular feature isn't licensed on this particular console. Basically, what you do to license one of these features is that you take the serial number of the installation and you copy it, and then you send it to your sales representative for AEQ, and he will get the license key back to you that you just paste into this key area. As I said, it's important to understand that we are always working offline. So even if I have now just connected to the console, I can see what I've read the very basic features here. We should always ensure that we, when we say import, we save the configuration that we have on the application. We save it to a file that we can recall at any given moment. We give it name as well, or we can export. Which means that what we do is we take it from a USB or from the hard disk, and we put it on the cache memory of the computer. Here you also define what user levels you want to have, and what kind of users, what kind of access they should have to the consoles and the different features and functions of the console. And eventually you have the about, which is basically just your welcome screen. It gives you an indication of what version you're using. All right, the hardware configuration consists in the board configuration, basically. The board configuration you can do, either you can configure that offline. You have to ensure that it's coinciding, of course, with your actual physical layout of the core and the position of the board at the rear. In this case, it's indicating that we have a 12 fader actually, I'm working off the cache memory, and we have actually a 16 fader form split available on this one. The faders are in normal mode, not in full throw mode. And we have the digital nominal level is set to 18 dB in full scale. We could get the hardware info. When we do that, we overwrite anything that we have on our cache memory. So this we should use with due care. Here again, we have what we said, what is available to have licensed. So if you have audio over IP, you can have 32 or 64 channels available, and you define how many you want to have. And you also define here whether you want the audio over IP to be the master in the audio over IP network, or if it's acting as a slave. In this case, it's a slave, so probably there's another device in the network that is acting as a slave. The GPIs and the GPOs are configured in a very simple manner. You basically define if it's on high or low, and the GPOs if they are using high or low levels, and the eventual duration of this, and how we are using also the relays of this, if they are around high or low level, the duration of those impulses. The virtual GPIs and GPOs, as I explained to you, as long as we are on the same network, we can send the GPOs and the GPIs from the console or to the console. We only need to define what, in this case, the GPI, where this console should expect that this the virtual GPI is coming from. We need to define what IP address it's coming from, and the ID number of that particular one. So in this case, we can see we have two GPIs, and they can be expected from 3411 and then 1 and 2, and then we have another one from 3417 that could be coming in as well, and it would have the ID number 3. I'll show you how that works. And the same goes for the GPOs. We just need to define where we are sending these virtual GPOs to. So in this case, we're sending to the address 3410, which is an external equipment, and 3411, which is another external equipment, or an automation system, for example. The mixer bus configuration, there's not a lot to go into here because this is normally handled by just configuring your inputs and outputs. But typically you get a standard mixer bus configuration from factory that I would suggest you don't touch too much, because you can modify it, of course, but normally it's related to what we have available in our on the physical keys for example, direct routing, the 4 program buses that we had, the program, audition, auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2, your Q bus, your studio and control monitor buses as well that are routed to your headphones and to your monitors. And then, of course, your N-1 or clean feed buses that are used for telephone or for multi-conferencing applications. So going to the IOs, what you would do is typically, for example, we could take the DJ mic, we would have it here somewhere. Here we go. We can configure that. And when we configure our input, what we do is we define, first of all, the label. If it's going to have a fader start associated to it, it could be a virtual GPO or a physical GPO. If it's going to be, in this case, started from a remote box, so it could have a GPI, or if it's going to act as a solo. If we can control that from Studio Box, for example, so we can decide that the microphone should act as a solo microphone, muting all the other microphones. If we have a cough mute as well, or if we want to cue this channel remotely from, for example, the studio, the anchor in the studio is able to remote cue this one. When we say show channel in fader menu, that means that this channel would be assignable to a physical fader, which means that I can move I can take that channel from the routing from the particular hardware surface or the control surface of the console, and I can assign it to a particular fader. If it's hidden, the user of the control surface will not be able to assign it to a fader. That's basically the reason why we call it visible and hidden. This is important when you're doing particular signals that you don't want to be able to be allocated to faders. For example, satellite feeds and stuff like that that are always mixed, for example, to a program output bus, and it's always kept at the same nominal level and doesn't need any adjustment. Or for example, your time top signals and stuff like that. Your studio on-air and control on our monitors can be muted or not. In this case, it's a DJ mic, so the control monitors would be muted if I open the fader and have the channel on. And then I can define if I want to use this for orders as well. So if I want to use this microphone to send an order signal to an external device, that could be a codec or whatever. And then the GPO would allow us to assign a GPO when this channel is on. I will come back to that later on, because you can define that the off button on the at the bottom of the fader channel can act as a GPO as well. So we could actually trigger a GPO for a particular channel with this fader channel. Now, the output signals that we have available on the console are configured in a similar manner, but it's a much more simple configuration. But here, what we're doing is basically assign a label that we will be able to see in our menus on the console. We only have 6. In reality, we only have 6 labels or 6 characters available on the input side. On the output side, we have the OLED displays that will be able to show us a little bit longer And now here what we do is basically just to define what will be the default routing for this particular output. So this physical output is actually going to the audition bus. And it's considered to be being a stereo channel. One thing that is important, excuse me, one thing that is important to take into account when we look at mono and stereo channels in our consoles, all the channels, even if in any format of the channels, are always they can always be mono and stereo. And with that, when I say stereo, we are not losing a stereo pair because we configure it as mono. We would gain 2 mono channels. I hope it's more or less clear. The monitoring section here is basically just to define where we have how we're going to operate our section, if it's going to be in exclusive or in mixer mode, and then how we operate our green lights, with what relays we are using that, and the same goes for the control room section. And then we can also, if we would have the visual radio, we could also define what microphones, or it's not actually microphones, it could be any input channel is going to trigger a macro in our visual radio application. So we can define which of these labels will be, or my input channels will trigger a macro in the visual radio application. The Ntp client is what it is. It's basically just giving a system time, so we can either use an Ntp server of our own or whatever, or we can have it deactivated, taking the system time manually from whatever. And then finally, in this area, what we have is the definition of what we are doing with our broadcasting or not of our VM meters. The VM meters that are available in the console in terms of input and output levels are sent on the local area network, and is available those to the application that Sergey just showed us, the screen and the virtual ones as well. And these can be broadcasted, multicasted, or multi-unicasted. All right, now, as I said, we configured the inputs and the outputs, and the result of that would be this routing table. We can actually modify the manually here the routing if we want to. But this is typically an area that is available only to the sophisticated people and that has capacity to configure this in a router environment as well. Now, the programmable keys is one of the most powerful features of the console. So I'll show you real quickly here what we can do. As Antonio and also Sergey mentioned, we have 20 keys that are assignable that we can program as we want to. In this case, we have here 4 multiplex or N-1 buses that have been configured. And when I say configured as MPX, if we configure them as MPX, it's dynamically selectable from the control surface. If we configure them in the setup as a clean feed, then this is, you don't assign any signal dynamically from the control surface. It'll be the permanent routing that we have already predefined as what will be going out to, for example, the clean feed for the phone lines, etc. So multiplex 1 would be the clean feed for the hybrid one. In this case, I've programmed also 2 buttons. One is handling the internal hybrid, so it would trigger a ring on the console. It would flash the programmable key, and it would when I hit it, it would place the call on wait. And if I hit the next button here, the third one from the top, it would put the call on air. And if I hit it again, it would put the call, it would hook off or hook on the call. If I go back to that, it would turn the call back into wait, and I could talk to the caller off air as well. One of the most important features is to be able to program complex operations like macros and salvos and so on and so forth. In this case, for example, I've done a very simple configuration that could be used for example, a voice track recording. And basically what we're doing here is we take with a virtual GP, with this key, we take the microphone, the DJ mic is going to be disconnected from the program output, and it will be connected to the USB port, which is the recording channel for the automation system. And the second sequence, when I release that button, it would disconnect from the USB and it would connect to the program output again, the announcer's mic. And also, what I'm doing at the same time, I would be triggering, for example, a virtual GPO, and I can also define how I want the button to react. In this case, I want it to start flashing. So it's adverting the operator that he is using now the microphone for a voice track. And what we're doing here is upon receiving a remote command from this IP address, that is triggered. And it is also starting the automation system by pushing and forcing a virtual GPO to that IP address, which is the USB port, well, which is the computer that is using the input of the from the microphone that we have just connected. There are many other features, like for example orders, and we can send orders to a specific codec, for example. There are many different functions that we can configure, and that what we can do with the physical keys. But we also have a set of virtual keys that we could program in the same fashion. These keys would not be available to the user, of course, but we would be, for example, to trigger virtual GPIOs, and so it allows us to program specific salvos and settings of the actual mixing matrix or routing engine of the console. All right, well, I think that's enough with the programmable keys. You can also create groups. For example, if I have the guest mics and I want to move these guest mics with one single fader, I can do that. We can also prepare our presets like Sergey explained, by basically just creating a preset for example, compressors, limiters, noise gates, EQs, etc., etc. And the last part of this would be to explain what we can do with the memory banks of all this. So basically, we have 6 memory banks, which is in reality 7 because it's bank 0 to 6. Would allow you to configure how you want the console to start up, and we can have a setting for the morning show and the setting for the afternoon show, etc., etc. Now here what we do is basically define what we will have on these faders when we start up the fader with this particular memory. And we can also define whether we want to use it in normal mode, which is basically not having the A and B keys at the bottom of the fader channel to have any particular function. But we can also define it to be A and B setting. So I can define that I have for fader 6, I have studio microphone 2, and I have a headset on channel B. So I can switch between these two without having to set or change the whole setting of the console. I can change individually A and B. This is typically the old-fashioned A and B settings of analog consoles. We can also define orders, so we can have the B function or the off key of the fader could be an order microphone, for example, or so we could talk to that particular input, for example, a codec or a satellite receiver or whatever it is. And the GPO would actually allow us to have a virtual GPO sent out on the, or a physical GPO sent to the network as well. And here we also program how we want our studio monitoring defaults to start up with a program monitor, or if you want to queue or audition, these are the buses that you want to monitor. And then in your headphones or your cell, that would be defaulting to a tuner in this case. We would probably monitoring our off-air tuner in this position. We can configure our inputs and outputs. And here we have basically what we showed you at the setup part, but here we can assign, as I said, how we have this routing coming up. So it would be sent in this case to both program and audition, but we could define it to be sent to auxiliary 1 and 2 as well. And we can also use presets for our EQs, noise gates, high or low pass filters, etc., etc. We at the same time, with the user or with the outputs, we can also prepare our settings and define basically here what would be the nominal level for that output in this particular case. Okay, well, in any event, I think what we should do is to arrange for a particular session of a particular session for this particular setup software and how to configure this. So what I will do, I'll go back to the presentation. And we will show you a few of the user references that we have available. But there are many using the different forum versions, the standard forum, the grand forum, the forum split, the forum LITE. There are quite a few of them around the world. We're just showing you a few here, like Radio NQ in Mexico, in Sri Lanka, with Limpen Radio in China, etc., etc. All these references are available on our website. And you can download a list of references whenever you want. These are another batch of them. For example, Turkey, we have Radio Marca in Spain, Bio in Chile that are using a grand forum here, and then Radio 1 in the Netherlands, and so on and so forth. It's a long list, but all these references are available for you. And we encourage you to download them and have a look at them at any moment. Okay, we've come to the end, and we will open the Q&A session, and Antonio will take a lead on the Q&A session. So I'm handing over to Antonio for the Q&A session. And please make any questions that you have, make them to the area for the chat.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I think my camera is not working, I'm afraid. It's not starting again.
I can turn off mine as well if you want to.
Luckily it was working during the presentation time. So thank you very much indeed for the presentation. I hope you must be listening to me.
Yes, we do.
And yes, of course, you truly say you could be working for hours in the about the console itself. So okay. I'm not sure if Sergio is there.
Sergio is here as well, yes. Mm-hmm.
It seems we're having problems with the connectivity of the cameras, or at least my camera. Sergio is there. Probably I will have to switch off. I have to switch off my camera not to have a blanket in the pictures. Anyhow, well, also Sergio, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to just go back to the presentation screen. So we have a few questions from all around the world. So let's see if we can give some answers to our friends and clients from all around the world. Oh, now my camera is working, so here I am. Now it's connected to the device. So questions, just some very simple about hardware that we will not stop too much. Redundant power supply, yes, it's providing a redundant power supply. Sorry, we didn't say. Fan, noise, ventilation noises. No, the console is operating without any fan or making any noise. Some more questions about hardware. They said, for instance, typical questions about upgrading, because we're still having a large number of consoles which are more than 6, 7, 8 years installed. So they're asking if we have a normal, they call it normal forum 12 faders, and now we have in the auditorium, we need to add more microphones. How can we add the microphones? Yes, as I told you before, you can use external netbox boxes. And if you have a 12 faders microphone or 12 faders console, then you can group, as Peter explained, you can group the microphones into one fader and have all the, as Peter was showing, the microphone guest or the guest microphones. For instance, more questions about telephone hybrids. How can be controller in this forum mixer family? A question from Suraj, I suppose from India all around. So thanks for the question. Internally, you have 2 digital hybrids that you can build in, but in terms of control, let's say theoretically you can control as many as you need. The console can remote like a phone-in system. You can, as Peter explained, you can plug as many hybrids in terms of audio. We can do all the mix minus you need in the console, and we can set up, as Peter explained, we can set up all these programmable keys to remote control from the console the call ins and out. The only thing you require is a handset for dialing. Questions about the IP. For instance, Amit, he was asking, is mandatory always IP connectivity in the forum? Our studio is small and we don't need it. No, you don't need IP connectivity. IP connectivity in terms of audio is an option. And in terms of control, no, you don't need to have the software on. You don't need to have the PC on to operate the console. The console operates independently. Consoles do have analog inputs and outputs. Of course, they have also analog outputs. It's a question from our colleague Jackson, and questions from another colleague like Abdul. We have a black forum. Black color forum is possible to add new audio over IP option. Yes, it's a module, and most probably we'll have to upgrade the firmware you have. This is a very interesting question. This I'd like to pass it to Peter because it's a complicated question and I'm only answering the simple ones. So some colleague called Mustafa, he says, remote application is amazing. Thank you very much. But he's having a very typical question. I have a question regarding EQ and compressors that are available for RJs, radio jockeys, as they call them. When they come to studio, they don't want to spend time setting up the EQ and personalized settings. Can we preset that so they can be loaded? You explain this a little bit, Peter, because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's most probably the way you should work anyway. So as we try to explain, both Sergey and myself, you can store as many presets of EQs or compressors related to a particular microphone channel as you want to. That's not a problem. You can recall them at any moment as well. So yes, typically this doesn't require to be loaded on a memory bank, but you can associate, for example, for your setting a particular general setting, and then you can have a particular EQ that we could call mic DJ setting, and we can load it at any moment without any problem. You can recall it from the control surface. No need to do it from the software, of course. So yes, you can.
Yes. So I think the answer is yes. Of course, you can set up the particular settings for operator, and they can recall easily. The way is to operate on an easy, simple, intuitive way. And related to this, yes, Peter, please.
Yeah, sorry. The only thing that you need to take into account is that you need to render that user with privileges to load. So he has a user privilege allowing him to load a preset. Yes, and that's it.
So, and also related to this question about the equalizers and the filters, how many? Well, Peters can give you more details if you want, but processing the forums and Capitol, they are equipped with a very strong DSP devices or DSP chips inside. Normally, they have enough capacity to provide process for all the signals that you have in the faders, which are normally the signals that you're going to use. Load of DSP load is given you by the console, and so when you reach the limit, the consoles you can see the displays. Normally, depends on the type of processes you want to use. Depends. It's when some you have the compressors, the limiters, the noise gates, filters, equalizers. So depending, some processes takes more power than the others. Filters takes very little, so you can make a lot of filters. Compressors uses a lot of far more power inside the console, so you cannot make as many compressors as but you have enough. You have enough for. And if you're going to do a hard processing, the better is to use an external processor, which is going to use only one output on the console, one output and one input. So some more questions related about the software for Sergio and for Sergey and for Peter. Mark is asking, we see in your website a forum plus a nice big screen that seems to be a touch screen. Is that included by default? Sergio, maybe again you can explain us how it's working.
Sorry, can you repeat me the question, please?
Yeah, if basically
no.
What is the virtual and screen software licenses included, not included, demo? Maybe you can give them a brief explanation about this.
You can in the software, when you have the forum in the software, you can get the demo version of the virtual and the forum IP screen. Okay. Otherwise, you can purchase them individually or both of them together. So if you go to the software and check for these two software, you can find the demo versions. Yes, you can activate it, check it for a couple of days. I don't know what's the limit. It's 7 days, I believe. And after that, if you like it, you can purchase it, obviously.
Yes, thank you, Sergio. Yes, basically the basics are always built in the console, which is like the modules for monitoring, and then on top of that, you can grow with additional modules for any inputs and outputs, and the software modules, as Sergio was explaining, works in demo and also in payable one-time buyout basis. Also related to this, there is one question that I think is coming from Karani. The control software, is there a plan to allow user to access control software via LAN rather than installing a control app? Well, I don't understand very well the question, but yes, we have a control app, which is a secure element to operate the consoles. We don't want to give an open console, open access to the console, because that's dangerous. So we have to keep the control and configuration of the console under control. More questions related to clean feeds. Peter, how many clean feeds can they use?
The console comes always by default with 8 clean feeds, but the total number, I believe it's 16. We can create 16 clean feed buses or MPX buses or N-1 buses without any problem.
So yes, well, thank you. Yes, basically, as Peter said, and as also we explained, I think the console has a 64 by 64 matrix, and there you can configure clean feeds, as many as you need. And
actually, it's a little bit bigger than that, Antonio.
Sorry?
It's actually a little bit bigger than that. It's the resulting matrix in a maximum configuration would be in the region of 128 inputs by 128 outputs.
Yes, well, it's always amazing the capacity of the consoles, of the modern consoles. So yes, you can, this is a question I think from Ronnie, you can use as many clean feeds as required, and you can configure the mix minus, and you can configure the signaling, you can configure in the programmable keys. So it's very nice, the capacity of the console. So if I think we don't have any more questions for the moment, just to thank you all for coming. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Sergey, for helping us, and the people which is in the background of at AEQ. Please do not forget to fill the questionnaire when we finish the presentation. It's always of use for us, and it's always very helpful for us to learn a little bit and to keep in touch with you. If you have any question about the consoles, you are free to contact us whenever you need it, and we will be pleased to help you overall in these complicated days and times we are living. We hope to see you again personally very soon in your countries, in the exhibitions, in the meetings, and we hope life goes back to as it used to be before all this pandemic took the control of our lives. And be safe, take care of yourself, and hope to see you soon again. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.